For everybody? Okay.
This is our class.
All right.
I know.
This is our.
Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Okay. Here, let's hand out these sheets. Jay, we're on chapter 2 today. I didn't bring my English, but it's good to have these. For those of you who don't have these yet, go get it.
It's coming Monday.
They all say that.
That's what Amazon
There you
said.
go.
Right?
So Rabbi Cohen, the ones that I have.
It's like this. The straight translation. The
Okay.
big red book that you have
so
is
would it
this.
still be helpful?
It's definitely helpful.
Okay.
But it's not going to be this that we're going to go into. So I would like everybody to go ahead and. I know it's hard to splurge sometimes for holy
Laurie,
things.
you got to get this one.
You know, my Rebbe would scream at people.
Here's another.
Got to get this one.
Which
That's
one?
what he said.
He's got one.
This?
Everybody has one?
My Rebbe would scream at people
one
who
isn't
would
as
spend
good.
money on lattes and he's like, you can spend it 4 days.
Quite right.
Why are you being so cheap on yourself? Okay?
Quite right.
So hopefully it'll come and everybody will have, and then we can.
My Amazon came in one day.
Because you're
Are
the
you
star
Prime? Are you
Amazon.
Prime?
Your Amazon
I'm
knows
Prime,
you
yeah.
and loves you.
Yeah.
Don't mess with Harvey. That's what the note on the Amazon thing.
They have a note.
They have a little side note there. This is Harvey's order, so don't mess.
Don't mess.
Okay.
Billions of dollars that they don't mess.
It says pronto,
Yeah, Pronto, after Toronto, Pronto, Tanto.
because I had to walk through to the, not the kitchen,
Been served by
There's a
everybody.
class in the social hall. And so the refreshments were out for the class,
Yeah.
which we were both at.
Oh, you went to the class. So you can
It's
get
still
the
going
muffins.
on. They took a break between the 10 and 11 o'clock hour, so they were about to start the second hour, and I came in here. It's preparation for high holidays, studying different prayers. We did the Shema Kolenu
Very nice,
from 10
important
to 11,
stuff,
and now
good
we're
stuff.
doing 3 or 4 other prayers.
You have to get into
Right.
the
It's the
preparation. It's
Elul thing. Yeah.
a lot of because what you think on those days is going to set your whole year. I always teach that. What you think on the first days of Rosh Hashanah is going to set your tone for the entire year. So that's why they say, do not get angry, no matter what, and you know you're tested. You're always tested, okay? So somebody sits next to you in this synagogue, it's obnoxious, like this, right? Or whatever. Whatever. We're all tested in different areas.
Yossi Grossman does that to me every week when I fall asleep.
Okay, fine. All right, here we go. We're going to start chapter 2. Here it's going to start on page 29 in my book. You guys have the sheets handed out, okay? So we have to just do a little recap on what we did last week, okay? Because, you know, we're starting from the big idea, and the big concept here of this whole section has to do with faith, okay? It has to do with emunah. It has to do with belief, okay? Because it's very important in terms of getting our concept right. You know, because a lot of people, their concepts from wherever we came from, whatever backgrounds we are. You know, I was in an Orthodox synagogue talking to somebody about God, and he really still had this imagery of some, you know, dead white dude with a beard on a throne somewhere in heaven, right? So he still had some kind of imagery there, right? You know, like not dead, literally dead, but just some mellow grandfather on his throne with a long beard, okay? Any case. Anyways, we have to. There was once this rabbi who was actually sitting with an atheist. You know, somehow they did that. You know, whether it was a park bench or the atheist came to visit him, whatever. Right? So this guy, you know, the atheist, you know, really full of, you know, he got a lot of good energy about them. You know, and he says, you know, I don't believe in God. He has to say that to the rabbi. He felt he had to say that to the rabbi. And what was the rabbi's answer? He says, you know, the same God that you don't believe in, I also don't believe in.
Oh.
When you think about it. Because obviously this guy who's coming from the idea of I don't believe in God, obviously he has ideas
A different image.
about what God is for him to not believe it.
Right.
So, of course, Rabbi Nachman, who answered this atheist, he says, yeah, well, your ideas are verkrumped. You know what verkrumped means?
Yeah.
Off.
Nonsense.
Right?
Yeah.
So your ideas about God, of course, I don't know. I also don't hold by those ideas about God. And my dad, he recently always says this very important line that I happen to really like. And these days, I have to always have it in my mind when I talk to different people, because it's the issue of, it's not so much as if you believe in God or not, but it's what do you believe God is. That's the dynamic of these whole chapters. Okay? It's not whether you believe in God, it's what do you believe God is. So we're delving into the idea, the concept of Ein Sof. Okay? The unlimited isness. And as we're approaching Rosh Hashanah, we're approaching the birthday of humanity, is the attitudes that we have to have in our approach. Yes?
Question. As a Jew, if you don't believe it, if you're born to Jewish parents and Jewish background, and you don't believe in God, are you still Jewish?
Yes, you're always Jewish if you're born Jewish, no matter what. Once you're a Jew,
Even
you're
though
a Jew all the way from your first cigarette to your last dying day. Isn't that West Side Story? Sorry, I changed the word.
We were talking about that the other day, but if you don't believe it, but the principle of Judaism is the belief in one God, so...
Even if, let's say, you don't, it doesn't matter. It's in your genes. You can't shake it.
Okay.
You can't shake it.
Okay.
A Jew can become a Mooni, a Hare Krishna. He can go to become a Muslim, Christian, back to who knows what.
Uh-huh.
And when he wants to become back, let's say, into the fold of being a practicing Jew,
Uh-huh.
he doesn't need to reconvert.
Uh-huh.
It's in the genes. It's,
How about if somebody converted to Judaism? Are they always a Jew?
if they do it and it sticks, that's a question. Does it stick? Okay? What does it mean sticking? Okay? So it means that the person has to be observant for a certain period of time. If they're observant for a certain period of time, and then they go out and want to become a Christian, right? They're still technically a Jew, right?
Do you know what that period of time is?
You know, I heard somebody say a couple of Shabbosim, 3 Shabboses.
Really?
Not very much.
That's all.
What a pocket!
I would think it'd be 50.
What a pocket! No, you don't want to do that. That's why we're so afraid of converting.
Yeah.
Because you know something? Nowadays, they're way more stricter.
Yeah.
Nowadays, even for if they were religious for a year, 5 years, and then all of a sudden they see him after 10 years, retroactive nullification,
Really?
and you were never Jewish.
Wow.
Now they want to do that. I don't know if it could be done. I don't want to get into that. Off topic. Okay, let's go back. There's a concept, there was a statement in the Zohar that we're investigating throughout all of these chapters, and we always have to bring ourselves back to whatever what's that statement. And the statement was that the Shema, when we say, Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one, that's called upper unity, upper unification, upper connection. And then there's something called Baruch Shem, which we say in an undertone, except for Yom Kippur. Blessed be his name, whose glorious kingdom is forever and ever. That's called lower unification, lower connection. And what is this upper, what is this lower? That's question number 1, and that's he's going to spend the entire, 12, 13, I think it's 12 chapters here, of it. I can't remember it anymore. I think it is, 12 chapters, on explaining it. According to explain that, of course, he has to give us a lot of introductions and thoughts in order to build up the concept. So the first place where he starts, the Baal Tanya, that's the author of the book, the Baal Tanya, Rabbi Schneerson, okay? He presents a question, something that we say in the Aleinu, and we do say the Aleinu on Rosh Hashanah. That's when we bow, right? The one time on Rosh Hashanah that we do bow in the repetition of the Musaf prayer, the additional prayer. We talked about that a little bit, right? When you put the hand pieces of paper or tissues, because you shouldn't put your forehead on the floor directly, because there's an isser, it's forbidden to engage in what's called an idolatry.
Okay, yeah.
So it's an idolatrous practice to put the forehead on the floor. So therefore, people want to put, let's say, some kind of separation, towel, tissue, paper, whatever it is,
Right.
so that they don't touch, but they bow. But it's an awesome experience. I advise everybody, don't just let the chazan do it and you're too lazy to do it. Do it once a time, and if you need help to get up, so you ask people help, they help you. Everybody helps each other get up.
And it's done by Ashkenazim?
Ashkenazim, I don't know about Sephardim. I think Sephardim do it. I think I was in there and they do it, yeah. I think I was in there
You do it
once.
in our synagogue.
That's what I was thinking.
I
but
haven't
didn't
seen
know
it
to
done.
haven't
say.
seen a tower.
Okay, so
but
then
this
you
year-
maybe want to get out more.
There was a couple last year that I saw that appeared to be doing.
It's a worth it because it's a solemn, awesome moment when you bow. And you don't get to do it so often, right?
There are two guys I see that do it every time they say the Oleno.
Well, every time, you mean every day, all day.
Yeah.
Okay, well, there's a little
I
sugar.
do that all.
Okay, a little
I'm only there for chakra.
okay, fine. We're normal. We go normal.
Things that
Right,
we're
stay normal. Okay. All right. Okay, so in order to start that, so we started off with Elena, we say, right? So we have the statement was that he began was that V'yadata hayom, and you will know this day and place upon your hearts that Hashem hu Elokim, that Hashem is God, v'shamayim ma'al, in the heavens above and on the earth below, ein od. There is nothing else.
Right.
Okay? Say that in the last lines of the first paragraph of Aleinu. Right? Ein od. There's nothing else. Okay? And then, so he asked the question. He says, why? It says, you got to make this sit real deep, folks, because there's no God under there. Why would I think that there's a God under there that we have to make this thing, we have to have this penetrate so deeply into our consciousness? Okay? So what does it mean? What does these lines mean? So then step one, in terms of answering it, is he's trying to give us a whole different perception of reality that we are not been maybe accustomed to. And from the line that King David says, the verse that King David says, Le'olam Hashem davarcha nitzav b'shamayim, forever God, your word stands in the heavens. So Baal Shem Tov explains that the 10 statements which God made creation with, that in the first chapter of Genesis, those 10 statements, and God said, God said, God said, are giving every single thing its animation. Okay? In a very concentrated form. It has to be diluted because it's real heavily concentrated. Because we don't see in a stone, a rock, we don't see a rock. If I would line up all the 10 statements, there's no place where it says, and God said, let there be a rock. Okay? But for the different permutations and the way that letters are substituted and transposed, it comes out, it's kind of diluted or filtered in a way that gives everything its animation, and therefore, really, bottom line is, everything is created from the 10 statements of creation, and really those 10 statements of creation are a series of letters. As we know, the Torah is the blueprint of creation. And what made the blueprint? The letters. The letters preceded the Torah. So the letters we look at as primordial building blocks, primordial energy fields of creation. Okay? I was always thinking about the superstring, and I'm hoping some of you guys will be able to chime in and help me, because I every time I read one of them books on quantum mechanics, I get lost. I never make it past chapter 2. Okay, because they lose me. Right? But the superstrings are supposed to be the subatomic particles, are very tightly wound strings. A string is a vibration. Right? You go, ah, that's a vibration. That's the aleph sound. Bay. When you do that, believe me, when you get into it, and as we go on, in terms of your prayers, when you're uttering a letter in Hebrew, because everything comes from the Hebrew alphabet, it has tremendous vibration, and everything in a cosmic way shakes entire around you, and you can have that actually extend not only throughout the synagogue walls, but the city, the country, and the world. Okay, and that's where the meditation is supposed to take us. And when you say a b, everywhere in the entire universe, the b is shaking. All of a sudden, it wakes up, because, like we say, resonance, like things in a vibration, always resonate with things of the same vibration. So if you say a b, the entire universe says b back to you. Okay. Or duh. Okay. Okay. All right. So we got the idea of that the entire universe is basically being animated constantly through these 10 statements. So if the chair is basically the letters of the chair, if we would be able to penetrate in the inner depth of a chair or a table or whatever you see, if we could somehow peel off the mask of matter, we would see the letters in it. That's the inner genetic spiritual code of every single thing in the universe. Okay? We would be walking through an ocean of letters. Okay? What? Hebrew letters. Okay? That is the code of every single thing in creation. Of course, we can't see it. Hashem doesn't want to see it because we'd freak out. Okay? It would be too much for us. Okay? And but the idea here is to start to understand, to see beyond what we think reality is not really reality. Okay? So now we're going to start chapter 2 here. Okay? After he explains that. So Mikan Shuvas Haminim. From here, from the foregoing exposition, the answer to the heretics is deduced. They call the heretics minim. Vigilui, and to reveal the shorish, the root of their mistake. Hakofrim bahashkacha pratit, those who do not deny the individual divine providence, and the signs and miracles recorded in the Torah is revealed. Okay? Yeah.
Rabbi, when God spoke to Moses, what language was he speaking in?
Say that again, please.
What language did he use? They weren't speaking Hebrew.
Swahili, of course.
No,
I
they
have
weren't.
Swahili.
They
Of
weren't.
course, you know it.
They weren't speaking Hebrew, right?
Yes,
They were
actually,
speaking
it was word. Actually, there is an opinion that says they did speak Aramaic in the desert,
Yeah.
but they did understand Hebrew. The Torah was given in Hebrew.
Okay.
Okay, and it was also given in the Targum. It was also given, according to the Gemara and Megillah, it was also given in the Aramaic translation.
But when God spoke to Moses, what language did Moses hear it in?
I would say Hebrew.
Okay.
Why
Yeah.
are there different languages in the Torah? Aramaic and Arcadia and...
What's the other language?
I heard it was like...
There's an African word. A couple of words there that are borrowed. You know, a lot of things about that has to go with languages, okay? That the idea here is languages are filters in a certain sense, and in a certain sense it's a way to elevate the language as well, okay? Why God took that word and this word and did that, and there is Aramaic words, right?
Correct.
And an African word, totafot, according to Rashi, is an African word.
What does
Okay.
it mean in African? Or,
Box.
So why did you say it was in there?
Tafels.
Why did they use...
Trying to, you have an idea?
Well, we have this concept in studying words, hapexlegomenon, which means it's only one time form, but then they can try to figure out what to compare it to. So Jacob with the ladder, we use the word sulam. Sulam is called a hapexlegomenon. There's no other word in the entire Torah that you can compare the word sulam to. However, some of the scholars, they reach to other languages. And like you mentioned, Akkadian. So there is an Akkadian that has a sutiltil, something like that, which they use as a staircase. So they think that maybe that, but that's stretching. They think that may come from an Akkadian source. But the word sulam for ladder, we just have to say that's there, and there's no comparator. That we don't have to reach to other languages. So they
Okay.
call it
Some
a-
places they
that's
reach,
called
some
a-
places the Torah
But-
reach to
but,
another language.
Yeah, but that's...
The question is why, though, and I'm trying to remember because the Aramaic, the way the Aramaic, it's called or hoser. I'm talking about the Kabbalistic reason why those other words would be in the Torah. It's a different situation. We'll get to it another. Let me look it up and get back to you for a clear answer.
One other
Okay.
question. You said that they didn't know Hebrew at the time? 'Cause
No, they
most-
spoke Aramaic, but they knew Hebrew.
But they knew all 70 languages.
Some of them did. They
Moses-
had to write it on a plaster, so somebody knew all 70 languages.
Before they entered in Deuteronomy, before they entered, when
Yes,
Moses
they
gave
wrote
his
it on 70
dissertation.
languages. That's
Yeah.
true. It could be Moshe did it, because Moshe knew all 70 languages.
I think God did.
All the Sanhedrin used to know. You had to, in order to get into the Sanhedrin, the High Court, you had to know all 70 languages. Because you can't do no translation. There can't be no, what do you call a translator? Translator.
Interpretive?
Interpreter.
Interpreter.
No interpretation. No, those headphone gigs where.
Well, then they
No,
come
no,
from
no.
the Tower of Babel.
Because you're not going to put somebody to death because some interpreter says,
But if the letters are so important, each letter is so important,
Right.
and it fills the world, what letters are we, what are we, we're talking about Hebrew letters.
Yes, Hebrew letters only.
But then that goes back to my original question: Why would they have other than Hebrew letters?
Okay, let me. I know it's a part. It's usually the general idea is to elevate, to extract, because the languages. Rabbi Nachman explains. Okay, the languages. There's the Hebrew language, which is the holy language. The other languages have klipot in them, shells, husks. Okay, bad character traits. Each one of the 70 languages is a bad character trait. Okay, so when you take out from the language, you extract from it the sparks, the holy sparks from there, so you're rectifying that language. You're fixing the language, okay? Fixing the character trait, okay? We're all part of fixing the world. That's the general gist of why words are taken from here or there, is to extract the holy sparks that are within it, in a general.
Very
Okay.
interesting. Okay.
All right. So now we're talking about chapter 2 here on page 29. Chapter 2 continues the theme of chapter 1, elaborating on the necessity for God's continuous energetic presence in the world in the form of letters of the Torah to sustain the world's existence. Okay? So from the above discussion in chapter 1, we have an intelligent response to the heretics, are called minim. Okay? So who are these heretics? Why are they addressed now? So Judaism requires us to know how to respond to the heretic, actually. It's Pirkei Avos, chapters of the fathers, know how to answer those dudes, okay? So as to defend the principles of our faith. But the Tanya is not a polemical work, and it is unlikely that the author was expecting many heretics to be reading this text, okay? Or to be influenced by it. Rather, the author was of the opinion that faith in the received wisdom of Judaism must be supported by rational argument. Okay? So there has to be a rationale. Having accepted the received wisdom of chapter 1, that God creates the world continually through the letters of the statements of Genesis, it would now be helpful to know why this must be the case, rationally speaking. Our exercise in responding to heretics is important if we never engage with any actual heretics. It is beneficial for us to understand the necessity of continual creation. Okay? So in the clarification of the root of the error of these heretics, the Tanya teaches us here a Hasidic approach to arguments about faith. Debating issues directly is often ineffective, since it involves a strong element of one-upmanship. I didn't even know that was a word.
One-upsmanship.
There you go. One-ups. It should be one-upsmanship.
Yeah, they left the essay.
Okay, there you go. Where each side is trying to outdo the other, rather than a frank discussion. The outcome often depends on the skill of the debaters, rather than the validity of their arguments. I didn't know that that's true. I thought it's the validity of the arguments. I'm always looking at that. I'm never looking at skills, okay, and how eloquent you are. You know, it should be what's being said.
Exactly.
True or not true.
Doesn't
Okay?
always work that way.
Doesn't. Obviously, you're telling me now. And I'm hearing this now. Pardon?
You have to say it in logical order.
A lot of things go into it, you're right, how it's expressed, but, you know, bottom line, you should have proofs and disproofs, you know? So the best approach is to clarify the root of the error, the conceptual principle, which is the source of misunderstanding, right? And see halekach vehalibuv, okay? So, anyways, the error of those heretics who agree, that God created the world something from nothing, but who deny the possibility of divine providence, okay? In other words, there are people who believe that God created the world something from nothing. That's great. The big thing is, do they believe that God is still involved in the world to a specific divine providence, to a specific degree? Because most people think, actually, and I would say a lot of people in their minds, you know, God created the world and left. And people says, no, but in a certain sense, certain people act as if he did leave, okay? Or we're caught up in a habit as if God's presence is not there, okay?
In the last century, the big deal is God is dead.
I didn't hear that,
That
but
was
okay.
19.
Oh, on
What were you know?
the front of Time magazine.
Okay,
He was in
interesting.
Israel studying.
Yeah, I was in a cave.
Okay.
Yeah, okay? I was literally in a cave. Like people were saying, people were singing a song by this guy named Bon Jovi, and I go, "What's that?" Right? And I go, "He was some guy rock star in the 80s." I'm going, I was in a cave. Totally don't know. The only person who made it inside my cave was Michael Jordan. He didn't come actually in the cave. I didn't see him in the cave. Okay, but I heard about a guy named Michael Jordan. But that was it. 80s.
Yeah.
Nothing. Okay. Okay. Anyways, the idea of divine providence, the idea of specific divine providence is probably the one of the most important things that a person has to grasp, integrate totally into their lives. It is challenging because you have to constantly remind yourself that every single thing that happens in your life is specifically orchestrated for you and for your benefit. It comes from God, and it is not God. What are you doing to me, God? It's what are you doing for me, God?
Okay.
Everything God is doing for us. There's not a blade in the grass that does not have an angel standing, striking it, telling it to grow. Notice how the word striking it. It's not, come on, little Johnny Grass. Okay? It's, get up. Okay?
Wake up.
If you don't initiate growth, then, whoosh, okay? So,
How's it going to go?
That's
Getting
very
slapped
poetic,
down.
isn't it?
not slap down, slap up, okay? It's like, wake up, okay? The idea really here is that God is involved in every single little of the littlest. Now listen, I drove to Los Angeles and back this summer, okay? And I'm sitting there praying it's in the 3 weeks, and I'm driving back on the 9 days. The 9 days, no one drives in the 9 days. Like, no trips, dangerous, no court cases in the 9 days. Temple destruction, bad
Well, I
mazel.
heard you had a very interesting happening when you just got
It was great. I'm going to share. So I'm praying, Hashem, please no mishaps on the road. Please let me not make a mistake. Please let no other drivers around me make a mistake. Please let no donkeys or sheep or goats or deers pop on the road or people with tires. Those trucks with the huge tires all of a sudden, whatever. Please, Hashem, no mishaps. I'm praying before I leave. I'm praying during I'm leaving. And I'm praying on the way home. I get to my home, finally back from L.A., 1:30 in the morning, pull up the driveway, flat tire. And I go, yes, thank you, God. I'm like, great, I'm home. I'm great. I'm so good with that. Thank you. It was decreed you're going to get a flat tire. But the prayers helped. Okay, you'll get it when you're home. Okay? I'm okay with that. But there's specific divine providence in everything. Every one of your meetings. You could be in the shopping mall and you hear some Gentile blurt out something, some random statement. That is for you to learn. That's too much, Rabbi. But you got to start to train yourself. Okay? God is involved. Okay? So in his Principles of Faith, continuing on page 30, in his Principles of Faith, the Rambam writes, Principle 10 is that God knows man's actions and does not remove his eye from them. Right? Rejecting the view that God has abandoned the earth. He has not abandoned the earth. He's still involved. A denial of this principle renders a person a min or a heretic. Okay? So it's kind of like scary. If you've ever gone through life like this in some degree, okay? So we have to exercise the heretic from within us, okay? God is involved in every single thing, every little thing, okay? These heretics accept that only one God exists and that he created the world, something from nothing, but they fail to understand how he could retain his utter oneness and, at the same time, be intimately involved with the world. If God is truly one, they argue, how could he be closely connected with a world of multiplicity? If he were to know and directly control so many details, wouldn't those details impose some detail in him? Right? So rather, the heretics conclude he must be an initial and distant cause of everything that exists.
What does that mean, some detail?
In other words, if he gets involved in every single detail of every one of y'all's life
Right.
and every millions and billions of people on the earth, he's getting involved. He's caught up. So therefore, it's like it implies I'm thinking, it's impossible for him to lose his one. How could he still be one if he's so involved in details, an expression of every little details? Where's the oneness in that? Because all I'm seeing is a lot of diversity in the world. I'm seeing so much diversity. How can you say God is one? I see diversity. All right, I'm experiencing diversity, right? So this kind of dilemma causes them to conclude he's at a distance. He's not involved, okay? And for the same reason, these heretics deny the possibility of divine intervention, such as the miracles and wonders stated in the Torah. The heretics argue, if God is truly one, he must be distant from our world of multiplicity. Therefore, he cannot directly intervene in the world's affairs to bring about a miracle. Okay? So the Tanya now addresses the root error of this ideology. They mistakenly imagine in their minds, so we're going higher on, and if you have it here, they err. On the third line in your sheets, they err, making a false analogy. What's the false analogy? In comparing the work of God, the creator of heaven and earth, to the work of man and his schemes.
Exactly.
For when a goldsmith has made a vessel, that vessel is no longer dependent upon the smith. And even when his hands are removed from it and he goes away, the vessel remains in exactly the same image and form as when it left the hands of the smith. So the same way these fools conceive the creation of heaven and earth. Right? So in other words, they think God made the world and left it, just like we make a vessel and we leave it. God made the world and left it. He's not involved. Or he's involved from a very big distance. Okay? Once again, here's that huge thing that we always have to confront ourselves with. How much do we project onto God? Just like I told you at the beginning of this class, this heretic didn't believe in God. I don't believe in the same God that you don't. I don't believe in the same God that you don't believe in. Because while you're projecting all your ideas of how God should be, according to your limited sense of knowledge, right? We always project. We're always projecting, right?
Sure.
So, and we project also how the rabbis. People draw all conclusions about the rabbis. They draw all kinds of conclusions. When the rabbi says you can't ride a horse on Shabbos, why can't you ride a horse on Shabbos? Right? It's because some doofus might want to get his horse to go, and he'll break a stick off, which you're not allowed to do on Shabbos, to hit the stick in the butt, to hit the horse in the butt, and get the horse going. Right?
But if you were
So therefore the rabbis say no horse riding on Shabbos.
Also, the
That's
horse
why.
is working.
What about?
Well, if it's riding you, and it's not. That's not really plowing. It's not. The idea here is, according to the Torah, musical instruments are okay on Shabbos. According to the Torah, you can play an instrument.
But you can play a piano?
You can. Now the rabbi says no instruments, not even a drum, not a piano. No, that's not. It's not a creation.
We're in mourning.
Why? No, it's not in
You
mourning.
might fix it.
No, it's not really tuning. It's in case a string breaks and some ignorant shmendrik in Alaska will fix the string up to keep on playing. Right? Shema Yisrael Hashem. Whatever in the synagogue that he's
That's
in.
why you can't
Frozen
do a
chairs.
carriage, right?
What?
That's why you can't do a stroller too, y'all.
That's different. That's kind of has to do with carrying in public. That's kind of different. But the idea here is the rabbi says no swimming on Shabbos. Why can't we swim on Shabbos?
Yeah, that's a
You
good
might need to
question.
dry off.
Here we go. Let's make a rebellion today.
Yeah, you're not.
You're gonna love the reason. You're gonna go crazy. You're gonna take all your books and coffee and throw it at me right now, and that's okay. I'm okay with that. Okay,
What is the reason
because
why swim?
the reason is because somebody in the world at a huge, massive swim party is going to go ahead and it's an excitement in the swimming. He's going to see some wood hanging out there, and he's going to erect a floating device.
What?
He's going to build a raft
What a
because
stretch.
he's swimming.
He's going to erect a floating device, and then all of a sudden you build something, and you desecrated the Sabbath by that building. Now, there are deeper reasons why the rabbis say what they say. This is what we're told, but we know that there's much deeper reasons. Okay, there is. Okay, but these are the reasons we're told. And of course, if you tell people, like I told all of you right now, you all go, those power-hungry control freaks. Okay, those rabbis are sitting in a room.
Come on,
We
it's
must
unrealistic.
control
If you're in
them.
a
We
private
must
pool
control
at home,
what?
It's unrealistic. If I'm in my private pool, I'm not building anything. I go dip, lounge.
Okay, let me.
sit down, you know.
Let's work. But let's work with this.
There could be others.
I'm not going to go too much into this, okay? But I'm going to go say, if they say, imagine now that it was permitted and it was always permitted. That means it would be massive pool parties, especially in Texas, everywhere, not just you in your little backyard. And even if it was you in your little backyard, they would hear you splashing around some guy, and would go, okay, must be it's okay to swim on Shabbos. Next week, pool party, my house, and he'd have a mass of people, 50 people, and one of those schmendricks would go ahead and build a raft. The rabbis care about every neshama. The rabbis care about the Shechina. The Shechina. Who is the Shechina? We'll call it simply the mother.
Okay, so do it private.
The rabbis care about the mother, and the mother must not be blasphemed. The mother has to be preserved and sanctified. And if one schmendrick in the world, out of his overexcitement in the swim party, builds a raft, you just stab your mother in the back. That's how they look at it. It's that serious. So therefore, no swim parties, right?
Back to the subject.
So the idea, people project on what the rabbis and people project on the God, right? People want to project, right? We call it transference. You got probably a whole higher name.
Yeah, I know, but I like the story about the horse because the last time I rode a horse, I was looking for a low-lying branch.
Thank you, God.
But
Thank
it wasn't
you.
on Sabbath.
Doesn't have to be. He was looking for a branch to break off.
Yes, I could get off this horse.
Thank you very much.
Standing up,
Okay. So the idea real here is people transfer their human limited knowledge onto God. That's the big mistake. Okay? That's a huge mistake. Okay? I was just learning this Shabbos, in the Baal Shem Tov, Keser Shem Tov. The purpose of knowledge is to come to not know. The purpose of knowing is to come to say, I don't know. Whole thing. Okay? So, Tachas Hayadiyah Shelo Yeda. The goal of knowledge is to not know. Okay? We can't know. Okay? So, you're going back here. So, these fools conceived the creation of heaven and earth. And going back here in the text, in the sheets. These fools, in the same way these fools conceived the creation of heaven and earth, but their eyes are covered, and they fail to see the great difference between the work of man and his schemes, which consist of, here's the big one, making one thing out of another which already exists. We call it in Hebrew, yesh miyesh, something from something. Okay? Everybody who's making a huge creation are all making something from something. In other words, you cut down a tree and you made a table. You took a tree and you made a table out of it. You didn't make the tree. I made this table. You built the table. You didn't make the table. You didn't create the table. You built the table. You took something that pre-existed. Okay? Right? Merely changing the form and appearance from an ingot of silver to a vessel. Great. You melted down some metal and you made a Kiddush cup. But the vessel, the silver existed. That's called something from something. And the making of heaven and earth, which is created,
Something
from nothing.
creatio ex nihilo.
From nothing.
Something from nothing. Okay? So here we get into the dynamic that, it's got to get more bizarre, folks, but he's moving in little baby steps for us, okay? We're all created something from nothing, every single moment. That's one of the unique things about Judaism, Baruch Hashem, is renewal. That's one thing that nobody else really has. And if they have it, they got it from us. We believe in constant renewal. Rabbi Nachman, he once had this doctor take his pulse, because he was pulses then, right? And he gave his diagnosis, and like an hour later says, take it again. You can have something different. And he took it again, he says, dang. Took completely different. Then another hour, and then another hour. He took his pulse all day long. He's like, everything is you're a wacko. He says, no, I'm renewed every hour. I'm a new creation completely. He really lived that, and we live that, and we know that now. Quantum physics say it, right? Every 7 years, your atoms are not the same, completely changed. As a matter of fact, it even goes down to a more divisible, smaller kind of thing, like your stomach lining is changing every 4 minutes, right? All kinds of, we're constantly breathing out atoms and breathing in other atoms, right? You got
discovered human genetics modified a couple times through history. So like how we were 3,000 years ago, genetically we're actually somewhat different from those people.
And you know something, the Gemara also attests to that, because there's passages in the Gemara and Gemara and Gittin which speaks about remedies. It goes through the weirdest remedies you've ever read. It's so bizarre. Like if you're sick with this, go find a guy named Levi, who's the son of Saint Levi, right? Like, what does that have to do? No, but they came out, the commentary says, none of those remedies work anymore, right? None of them. We're totally changed. We're changed. We are changed, okay? So, right, the question is why the change, and what is the cause to the change? We can say our thinking is the cause to the change, a lot of it. We can say that it's stressful situations that have gone on through all of the generations, all of the pogroms, and the Holocaust and everything that we've gone through. I think we are a certain different, definitely changed people because of our thinking patterns, okay? The idea here is something from nothing. We're constantly being created every single moment. God is creating us anew every single moment. We're flashing in and out of existence at such a tremendous speed, we can't see it, right? Like those flip books or something, right? Like that is a crude example, you know? Okay? It's a bizarre thing, okay? If we think about it and contemplate on it, you can renew yourself any moment. And Rabbi Nachman would constantly do that. And if you fall down, you just get back up, right? Because you're a completely new creation. Okay? Imagine living life with that mentality. And that's really what Rosh Hashanah is about. Okay? Most people are down in Rosh Hashanah Yom Adin. They get terrified. They're fearful. But really, it's a renewal. It's a fantastic renewal. And really what it is, like I said last week, the whole idea of Elul, you know, it was hinted to in last week's Parsha. You know where Elul is? There's no other month in all of the Hebrew months that has more hints and spread out through the entire Tanakh than the month of Elul. It's bizarre. So they had this week's Parsha, one of the hints is Asher Inu Liado Visham. It has to do with the Ir Miklat, the city of refuge. So now Elul is related to the city of refuge. How is Elul this month, before Rosh Hashanah, related to the city of refuge?
We get protected.
There, if a guy kills somebody on accident, he has to run to the city.
Before he gets caught.
Before he gets caught and killed, and Billy Bob kills him, the blood avenger, you know, whatever. All kinds of, he has to stay there till the Kohen Good, the high priest, dies. Right? And what does that have to do with Elul? What is going on here? What do you think about that? I mean, this is a whole other class. I'm not going to get into it. My idea here is just simply the idea of doing tshuva, the ultimate tshuva, is to really integrate in a deepest way how much God loves us. Because if you really would integrate that, how much we don't really fully get it. If we would integrate that, you would definitely be a different person. And then what you're judged on Rosh Hashanah is how much did you integrate that. Okay? In other words, if you sucked, okay, so how much did you do? How well did you integrate that? It's a relationship. Okay?
You have to pay attention before you start swinging axes to what you're really doing.
I'm the swinging axis. Okay, I like that. All right, let's go on here. Okay, so the idea really is we are created something from nothing. All of creation is created something from nothing. It's a tremendous miracle. It's so unbelievable. Okay? So here we have here on page 31 here, this little note here at the bottom. Okay? It's a really cool note there that he brings down from Rabbi Yehuda Loew, the Maharal of Prague, where it says a Hasidic thought. Everything is in God's hand. There is nothing outside of him. And this is what it really means to believe in God's existence. It's common to believe that there is a God, But people do not always affirm that he is all. And that's a problem, as it implies you could leave the domain of God, which you can't. Therefore, the belief in God's existence must be that he is everything and there's nothing outside of him. Okay? So really, like I said before, we are living in God's dream. There's no spot where God is not. Okay? And we're constantly being willed into existence every moment. Okay? So, here, going on, okay? Okay. Indeed, this is even a greater miracle to be created something from nothing. Okay? Pela gadol yoter mikriyat yam suf al derech mashal. This is an even greater miracle than, for example, the splitting of the Red Sea. As we know, for then, what happened at the Red Sea? God drove back the sea by a great strong east wind all the night, and the waters were divided and stood upright as a wall. One of the tremendous miracles. We say it on Passover all the time, right? Right? What happened in Egypt was just a finger, and what happened at the splitting of the sea was the hand of God, which is 5 times more than what happened in the going out of Egypt, or 5, or the 200, according to Rabbi Yaakov. It went quantumized, because the miracles were unbelievable, okay? So, if God had stopped the wind, the waters would have instantly flowed downward, as is their way and nature. And undoubtedly, they would not have stood upright as a wall. Even though this nature of water, which is to flow downward, has also created something from nothing. Right? For a stone wall stands erect by itself without the assistance of the wind, but the nature of water is not so. It's fluid, and it flows. God really gives the nature of water that nature, to flow. He made water to flow like that. If he wanted to, he can make something different, right? Right? Creation is really much more flexible, actually, than we realize, okay? Like, right, Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa's great miracles, he was used to miracles all the time. The daughter put vinegar in the candles instead of oil, and he says, let the one who say oil is flammable now say vinegar is flammable. And she lit the candles, and they lit just like oil. Okay. That's a high level, okay? His words, I would say, created it. Yes, abracadabra, ebarakadibara, I create as I speak. Okay? Let the one who said that oil is flammable now say vinegar is flammable, and the vinegar became flammable. Okay? So the idea here is the idea of water is something from nothing. The fluidity of water is also something from nothing. Okay? For if for the miracle of the splitting of the Red Sea, the continuous act of God was necessary, how much more so is it in the creation of being out of nothing, which transcends nature and is far more miraculous than the splitting of the Red Sea. That, with the withdrawal of the power of Creator from the thing created, God forbid, it will revert to naught and complete non-existence. Okay? So, God had the miracle of the Red Sea, and we look at the water standing still like a wall, and that's a fantastic thing. But when we look at it in a more deeper sense, right, all of the aspects of all of creation is constantly has its properties because God is willing it every single second to have those properties. You know, there was once a Kuntrus, Kuntrus Abachira, right? Rabbi Dessler brings this unbelievable concept, you know, of starting from if you take a seed, you plant the seed, what happens? The seed rots in the ground. And from that seed comes a plant. The seed has to die. And then something new comes from it. He says that's revival of the dead. It's amazing, right? It's an amazing thing. Something that we got used to, though. We're used to it. We understand that if you put a seed in the ground and it rots and then new things sprout from the seed. We're used to it. But really, that's an incomplete miracle of revival of the dead, right? So he says there's two kinds of things that are happening. There's miracles we got used to, And then there's miracles we're not. Let's see if this starts up again, because sometimes it doesn't. Okay, hopefully. There's miracles which we got used to. Let's say if somebody explained it like this, what happens if every single day, and you've known it all along, and your parents and grandparents told you, every single day at 12 noon, all bodies of water would split. And you were raised like that, and your grandparents were raised like that. Every single place in the entire world, every body of water, a bowl of soup, and your swimming pool, and your toilet bowl would split. Okay?
What a mess.
And, well, everybody would know no one goes between 12 and 12:30.
Right.
That's right? And the scientists would explain it, and the winds, and the magnetic fields, and the charge, and the they have books about it, right? And you study it, and it was like that way for all, it was never not like that, right? We got used to it. We got used to it. It's a miracle that we got used to. We call it nature, right? So that doesn't mean just there's things that we got used to. That's why that doesn't mean that it's not a miracle. It's just we got used to it. God is willing every single thing, every moment. Our existence and every single property of every single thing, every moment. Every single moment, He's willing it constantly. Okay? It's a different kind of reality that we have to accustom ourselves to. A different kind of way of seeing things that we're not accustomed to. Okay? Now, a lot of the rabbis knew this. They lived their lives like this. Like the Barditchever Rebbe was going with the Tanya. They needed to get some money to get somebody out of jail. They needed to raise some money real fast. And they had to make a meeting to get to this certain place inside the city, and they were traveling, and they got to the city, but the city had a wall, huge wall. And they had to walk all the way to get to the gate to get inside, and the Barditchever Rebbe says, there's no time. We have to go through the wall. And he starts to go through the wall. Now the Lubavitch Rebbe caught him. He says, no, there's time, we can make it. We don't have to go through the wall. But Lubavitch, we're going through the wall. Right? And they know it's a game. But they want to play by the rules. Okay? That's the idea. To get to a level of consciousness where it's all a game. Okay, but we want to play by the rules. Okay? You can't go through the walls all the time because you're going to freak people out. Okay? All right, so going on here, okay? So the idea that he's saying here is the fact that our mere existence, something from nothing that we're created every single second, is a greater miracle than the splitting of the Red Sea. Okay, because God is willing it, something from nothing, and giving every single thing its properties every single moment. Rather, he says, the activating force of the Creator must continuously be in the thing created to give it life, turn the page, and existence. These forces are the letters of speech and the 10 utterances by which things were created. Okay? Okay, let's go a little bit more and then we'll see if we can backtrack here. And that is the meaning of the verse, V'ata mechayeh et kulam. We say this actually every day in the liturgy, in the prayer book. And you really literally translates, and you give life to all of it, everything. You know, some things, when they say, it's very dynamic. If a person had to be deserted on an island, and he only can bring 2 books with him, what would be those 2 books? So Rabbi Riskin, I heard him tell this over, and I liked what he said. 2 books. You only can take 2 books. So one would be a siddur, prayer book, and the other would be a Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch means the code of Jewish law. You have to know what to do. The siddur is because even if it's a siddur, it's for praying, most of our thoughts in the deepest Judaism is within the siddur. In other words, Judaic thought and philosophy is locked in there. If you could harness it and go through the words, mamish, it has a completely, the siddur is supposed to get you into a state, but along with the dynamic thoughts of the essence of Judaism is in the siddur. Okay? So one of the words is V'ata mechayeh kulam. We say it every morning after Baruch Hu. You give life to everything. But read not mechayeh, give life, but rather mehaveh, bring into being. So in other words, when you go through and you're praying in that sitter and you get to that line, you have to stop for a minute. And you have to realize that every single moment God is bringing you into existence, and that is a way more powerful miracle than the parting of the Red Sea. The word atah, that's a great word. If you can always know this. This is something you got to really integrate, this idea. The word atah, you, indicates all the letters from Aleph to Taf. That's the first two letters of the word atah, Aleph through Taf. Okay? That's why et is a really dynamic word in the Torah, right? Doesn't have really any translation, right? They translated it like the, but that's not really it. And the most dynamic word is, it's like, I use it as like, the way I understand it is like, it's almost like an arrow, like one of those hands, like pointing, or an arrow, because it doesn't have a translation. But really,
it indicates the accusative.
There you go. Thank you for that.
The
No, but
accusative.
that one doesn't have a hay on the end.
Accusative.
We'll get. So the idea of Aleph through Taf, that's why et means Aleph through Taf. It's the whole spectrum. Okay? That's why there's at in the Torah. It's whole spectrum. The letters are very powerful and dynamic. Now what's the hay? The hay, the letter hay, notice how they put hot in there. Okay, I don't know where that came from. The hay, the letter hay, is the 5 organs of verbal articulation, the sources of the letters. In other words, there's 5 places we have in our mouths that chop the energy. Okay? Depending upon now, we can just make a voice, kol, like comes out straight. But now what makes a letter to be a letter is if it's cut in one of 5 different places in your mouth. Guttural letters, you have dental letters, you have labial letters, that's from the lips, you have a lingual letter from your tongue. 5 different places that the letters, the energy is cut, delineated. That makes a letter. We'll get to it later. That's a Wednesday night, Sefer Yetzirah. It gets into all of that, okay? But right now you just understand the hay represents those 5 places where the letter is chopped, where the letter is formed, okay? So that's what atah means. The atah, Aleph through Taf, and the hey articulations, that mehaveh causes all existence. Once again, it's indicating what? The letters, okay? Aleph through Taf and the 5 organs of verbal articulation, that's the 5 places in the mouth. Although he has no bodily likeness, that's Hashem, Kodesh Baruch Hu, yet Scripture itself ascribes to him anthropomorphic terms such as, and God spoke and God said, like we have in the first chapter of Genesis, which denote the revelation of the 22 supernal letters to the prophets and the enclothing of the letters in their intellect and comprehension in the prophetic vision, as well as in their thought and speech. In other words, that's how he communicated through letters. As it is written, the Spirit of God spoke in me, and his word was upon my tongue, which means it has to be articulated. Why did God make it that it had to be articulated? Why didn't he do thoughts? Right? My friend Nachum says this. Why wasn't everything just made with a thought? Right? And it could be it was. Okay? It could be it was. God, though, he wanted to have what's called an expression. More of an expression. Thought is an expression. Right? One day when we will be able to communicate with our thoughts like all those aliens in Star Trek. Okay? But right now he wants articulation in speech. And so the first thing my Rebbe taught me, my Rosh Hashiva taught me was the principle of Torah is thought, word, thought. God has thoughts. God has thoughts. He puts those into words, the Torah. And from those words,
Not other thoughts.
well,
It should
things
be
that you have to
thought.
do, but let's just get
Thought,
into
speech, and action.
yeah, but actions are usually the outgrowth of a thought.
Correct. Thought.
You have to have the thought first before the action. So the idea is, let's start with the thoughts. Let's go, what's God, right? So God has thoughts, and he puts those into words. And then from those words, we have to try to recreate and get the thought in our heads. Thought, word, thought. That's Mount Sinai. Thought, word, thought. Okay? So the Spirit of God spoke in me, and His word was upon my tongue, as has been explained by the Ari of blessed memory in Shar HaNevuah. Okay, so that's how he communicated with Moshe. Moshe, of course, was face to face, and of course, the communication of Moshe Rabbeinu was words. That's how he had it. None of the other prophets didn't have that. They had dreams and visions. Eventually, it was translated into words. Okay, but for Moshe, it was straight words. Similarly to this is the investment of the letters in created beings. As it is written, by the word of God were the heavens made, and by the breath of his mouth all their host. Only the enclothing of the letters in created beings is through numerous and powerful descents until the letters, I don't know why it's exclamation point, reach the corporeal world of Asiya, whereas the comprehension of the prophets is in the world of a higher level world, the highest of all the worlds, Vatzilut, as it becomes clothed in the world of Bria. In other words, when the prophets saw reality, they saw it coming from a much higher plane. They saw it in a higher level. Okay, they saw it coming from the world of Atzilut, closed in Bria. Us, on the other hand, we're stuck in the world of Asiya. So what we do is we need the prophets. The prophets go ahead and help us to get direction, to see beyond the mask of matter, to see beyond our physical world, and to try to reach with our consciousness to at least get a glimpse of that superconscious world, the cosmic realm of the letters. Okay? So the idea really here is we have to understand, just to close here, we are created something from nothing. That something from nothing is constantly, God is constantly willing us into existence every single moment. And that is a beyond a miracle, more greater of a miracle than the parting of the Red Sea. Okay? Because every single thing only has its properties because Hashem wills it to every single moment. And hence, the idea that we walk away from today, renewal. We are constantly being renewed. And we can appreciate that. Okay? We'll stop here.